Friends, Bryan here once again. It is I, and I wanted to thank you guys for tuning in. And, I, in my early 50s, I speak uncomfortable truths, usually no politics involved. I used to think I was crazy, but it seems like a lot of you guys agree with how I think and the way I see things. Some of you don't like me, but you still tune in and comment on my videos, and I really appreciate it. It's okay. Unlike most people today, I can agree to disagree, and that's fine. There's a lot on YouTube where people are talking a lot about men, women, the state of relationships. There's a lot in the middle age, over 50. Should you date again? Should you not date again? All the dangers. There's this thing called the MGTOW movement I talked about in previous videos, where a lot of men, it's called men going their own way. They just don't want to be in a relationship with women anymore for various reasons. Ladies, there's a lot of bad men out there. And for men, there's a lot of bad women out there. I have empathy for you all. Don't ignore your gut instinct and use caution. Do not ignore the red flags. But I just want to talk about some things from a man's point of view over his relationships with women. Some of these things were pretty consistent. That killed everything. Often when someone decides to leave a relationship, people will say, I don't know what happened to him. It just kind of came out of left field. No. Usually it's been building for a while. So I'm going to share with you guys some of my truths on this. What normally happens at the beginning of a relationship? You get talking with somebody. If you like them, you talk a little more. Usually at some point, you're going to talk a little bit, but you try not to talk too much about your exes. And usually it's kind of like, hey, I've been through this. I don't want to go through that again. That's not what I'm looking for, and I'm being upfront with you. And usually the other person will say, oh, yeah, no, I totally understand. This is a very important conversation. If you've been following my channel, you guys know that I've played professionally as a musician for many years. And 10 years ago, I stopped performing live. But it was the same thing in a band. You'd meet with a band that wanted to hire you, or you're putting a working band together. You would have these agreements. Hey, it's involving your time, your money, your talent, your income. And you'd have these agreements and you trust the person, but then once they get comfortable, things start changing. I used to bang my head, not like from playing metal, but playing in bands because, you'd just be so tired of it. You'd have these agreements and people would break them. And then when you've had enough, you're the biggest prick in the world when you say, okay, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this anymore. So those first conversations are very important. I think often people forget about those. And in the end, they're like, I don't know what happened to him. He just kind of flipped out. He just whatever. No. Mind reading. Women, some women, not all women, have an expectation of their man to mind read. And guys, let me know what you think of my point of view here. Ladies too. Again, here at this channel, we can agree to disagree. When things are off, something's not right with your woman, and you say to her, is everything okay, babe? What's wrong? I'm fine. Welcome to hell, bud. Because things ain't fine. And then you're going about the rest of your day trying to figure out what it is and fix the problem, and she gets annoyed with you. It's kind of like this, too. Have you ever asked a woman what she'd like to eat for dinner? You've been out somewhere. You're like, hey, babe, what do you want for dinner? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to stop? I don't know. Well, what about this place? No. What about this place? No. Well, what about this place? No, I don't feel like that. So now as the man, you're starting to get irritated. And as the man, you're hungry. And ladies, when the man is hungry, that is the worst time to expect him to mind read. Men are not the best communicators. Admit it, it's true. Guys, you got to try. Here I am saying women force men to mind read. Well, you can't make the woman mind read either. But communication can be tough. Sometimes men aren't good at opening up and talking about things. But when they do, and they do make an effort, it's important that however they feel, it's accepted. We're all entitled to our feelings. If you're trying to explain to your partner or your wife or your girlfriend something that's really been bothering you, and she immediately shuts you down, makes you feel that you're not entitled to have feelings, or puts your feelings up for debate, It's not a good feeling. I know. It's very important that people say, hey, I respect your feelings. Even if you don't always agree on them, and you just talk about it and figure it out. But believe me, ladies, when a man feels that he's made to not be entitled to have feelings, or his feelings are automatically put up for debate if it's something that she doesn't like hearing, it's not good. It's going to fester, and it's going to come out one day, and she can't be surprised when one day he says, yeah, I think it's time for me to go. Drama. I'm sorry, ladies, but women are more prone to this. Men don't want drama. They don't want tension. They don't want fighting. When a man is home, he wants to be at peace. He wants to be able to relax. If there's constant drama, tension, and fighting, sooner or later, don't be surprised if he's like, I'm out of here. How you treat and speak to your partner. You know when you're out at a grocery store or something, or at a mall, and you see the way a couple talks to each other, and you're like, oh my God, why do they bother? Myself, I wouldn't put up with it. I have in the past. I remember a situation where this girlfriend of mine many years ago, she started putting me down in front of her family. And I remember at the time I didn't say much. Of course, my communication skills are much better now. But I remember looking over and thinking, oh, really? Well, when it was time for me to leave, she was very surprised. No. How you treat and talk to your partner is very important. In my head, I think that the person you're with is the person you're supposed to treat the best in this whole world. I remember another relationship. She was always putting me down. It was awful the way she would treat me. And I remember right before I left, I put up with it for some time. But right before I left, I told her one day, I said, do you know that you're always putting me down? You always have something ignorant or stupid to say. And it was always like a heavy dig. Like, you know, one of those personal, I just got tired of it. And she said to me, she said, oh, but you know I'm sarcastic. You should remind me. You should remind me not to do it. And I said to her, I said, I should remind you to speak nicely to me? No. Well, a couple of weeks later, I was gone. But you know, here's the funny thing. In the beginning of the relationship, she didn't talk to me that way. She was as sweet as pie. Nicest compliments ever. Gifts. Lots of affection. It's funny how people get comfortable and they change. Sick. Being sick. We have a lot of jokes about man colds. The man's not really sick. He's being a baby. He's got a man cold. And that could be true. But I've seen consistently in past relationships where I was really sick, but it didn't matter. The woman was more sick with something. She couldn't just let me have a day of feeling sick. And for the love of God, there was always something wrong with them all the time, complaining about something. I remember being in a relationship with someone who complained and complained and complained. You guys know how I feel about health. But she wouldn't do anything about it, and I wasn't allowed to bring up diet or exercise. And it, sometimes an hour every morning would start with her going on and on about how awful she felt. I got tired of it after a while. So, what do you think happened? I'd just like to add a note here that this kind of thing, when someone has something wrong with them, I've been in situations where things were great in the beginning, but then once you give that commitment that you're being pressured to give, all of a sudden, the person's on the couch all the time and you're kind of turning into a caretaker and you're like, this isn't what I signed up for. Like, I thought this was going to be a relationship, not a caretakership. Women also develop this mysterious illness. The illness is called sick before beditis. Have you seen this illness, guys? Before, when you start dating each other, they never have that. But once you give in and give more commitment, it really seems to settle in. It's the weirdest thing. More on that in a second. Finances, financial reasons. It's very important that you're on the same page with the person when it comes to financials. I am not a fancy person. Even in times in my life where I actually had money, I wasn't a big spender. Getting bills paid, trying to get a little bit of money set aside every month, which is more difficult these days. And, maybe going out to a nice meal every now and then and buying some good healthy food. Those were always my priorities. But if you're with someone who doesn't think that way, and they don't care about paying the bills on time, they don't care about their credit rating, and they're always coming home with bags and bags of stuff, buying stuff that's really not important, it's not good. I've seen firsthand when someone has the your money is my money and my money is my money attitude. Yeah, if you think that way, you might have some problems. Also, I'd like to say, this is something I've seen a lot of women, sorry ladies, when they meet a guy and they start dating, say the guy's a musician, or I'll just speak for me. If someone's a musician, maybe not even professionally, maybe he just likes jamming with his buddies on a Friday night or a Saturday, or he likes going to the gym. I've seen a lot of women try and take that away once he commits to the relationship. If you're taking things away that make him happy and part of who he is, it's not good. I've been in those situations that I would tolerate to a certain point, but I've been in situations with somebody who made going to the gym absolutely miserable. Actually, I've been in a few situations like that. You know, I'll tell you guys a story. 25 years ago, I played with this band, and the guy who played drums, really nice guy, he's a bit older than me. He was an engineer, made big money, and we jammed in his basement every Friday or Saturday, whatever it was. And we would do it when his wife went to karate, something like that. And so she'd be gone for an hour and a half. But as soon as she came back, he was like, okay, guys, we got to stop. We got to stop. She would be down those stairs, arm in the doorway, just giving us the look of death. I remember looking at him going, you're going to tolerate that? What the hell? But I've seen that many, many times. Sorry, ladies, and I'm sure men do this to women too, where the women starts trying to take away things that are important. I've seen it firsthand with going to the gym. I've even seen it with YouTube years ago. I was with someone who, actually a few people, who really tried to take away my YouTube channels. Any fun out of doing YouTube. I remember this one woman I was with a long time ago had an electric guitar. You know, we'd be watching TV in a big room, and I'd say, okay, I'm just going to quietly practice, not plugged into an amp, just in the corner, and she would just glare at me. But then, when we were broken up, she was telling everyone what a wonderful guitar player I was. I used to get a kick out of that. But you know, this is also something else that we can get into. It's when a woman tries to beta-size a man. Basically, make him a... For me, I've always been an alpha male. You know, I would tolerate things to a certain point, but no more. And then, you know, I was always like a ticking time bomb. You know, you try to communicate, but then you get to the point in a relationship where when I'm done, I'm freaking done. I'm either getting my stuff and I'm out of here, or you're getting your stuff and you're getting the hell out of here. I don't want fighting. I don't want drama. Get off all my social media. Don't message me again. We're done. That's how I operate. But usually when someone leaves a relationship and the other person's going, I don't know what happened. They just lost their mind. No, there was a lot of reason for it. And it didn't just happen out of the blue. The last thing, and I got to be honest with you guys, we got to talk about sex. I have seen in the beginning, it could be a lot of different scenarios. It could be something like, you know, hey, you're just friends, maybe friends with benefits. And you're up front saying, hey, you know, this is just, I'm good with this for now, but I don't think I want anything more serious. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for too. Yeah, me too. But then before you know it, there's pressure. Hey, well, you know, I've been really good to you. Like, you know, why can't this be more? Or can you give me a time frame of when maybe there'll be more? There's always underlying pressure, even when you are dating in the beginning. You know, I had no clue when I was younger what love bombing was. And I can think in my life of 3 instances of it where it was just so crazy in the beginning. And the person was so nice, the affection, the nice things, the gifts, everything. And then as soon as you would, literally the day you'd moved in together, it would change. That mysterious illness, sick before beditis, would kick in. And you'd be like, oh, your stomach's upset, or you're having woman cramps, or, oh, you have a headache. Oh, like, you didn't get these before. What's going on? To me, folks, that's like relationship fraud. It's like baiting and switching. It's like, oh, this is who I am. This is who I am. No. To me, that's one of the big cardinal sins of relationships. And to me, that's the big risk when you get into those situations. Is the person that they are portraying to you the real person? You don't really know until you step into that more commitment situation, and then things can quickly fall apart. And then you're sitting there going, oh, this is great. We're tied into a lease together. We're tied into a mortgage together, or we have kids together. And this really wasn't who you are. I think fundamentally that is one of the biggest problems with relationships. That is my perspective. So if that gives any insight to anybody out there, why a lot of men don't want to get into relationships. But I have also said, like I said in my last video, if you're a hopeless romantic and you use your wisdom that you've gotten, you might be able to actually find the right person, as I have. Topic to come soon. What do you guys think? Comment below. And have a great day. Look at that. Enjoy the sunshine. This is Bryan signing off.